This is Breaking Bread with the Chief, presented by the Best in Blue podcast and the Memphis Police Department. When we break bread, it's an act of closeness and openness. We gather around the table to shed our armor and lighten our load, even if it's just for a little while. Chief CJ Davis hosts a series of kitchen table-style conversations at locally owned restaurants with an assortment of our city's influencers and leaders who provide valuable insight into what's really going on and what folks are thinking. We're breaking bread to break down barriers. On this episode, Chief CJ is at what is rapidly becoming a downtown fave, Feast and Graze. With guests, Police Sergeant Joy Knowlton, who also volunteers with Playback Memphis, William Arnold, Director of the Tennessee Office of Reentry, and Melvin Cole, founder and CEO of Pure Academy. Come join us at the table.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome again to Breaking Bread with the Chief. We are here with some dynamic individuals from our community. This is a Best in Blue production here at the Memphis Police Department. And again, we are taking an opportunity to have a robust conversation with community members. As you know, some of our previous conversations have really unveiled and revealed some wonderful ideas and just initiatives that are going on right in our community. So at this time, today, I want to introduce our chef, but we're at Feast and Graze right here on North Main Street. And we have Christina, who's going to talk a little bit about Feast and Graze and what are the offerings. We have a delectable meal that we've already cheated and started eating on as we begin our conversation. So Christina, thank you for having us, and tell us a little bit about Feast and Graze.
Yes, well, thank you all for being here. Feast and Graze is a cheese and charcuterie company. Okay. We are also a delivery service and a catering company as well. We've been in downtown Memphis for 1 year. Well, 1 year and a half now, but we've been in business for 4 years, delivering throughout the whole Mid-South.
Awesome. And yeah. I've been a customer in my personal life of Feast and Graze, and I've come here for lunch and takeouts, and thank you for providing a wonderful service to the community here.
Thank you. Thank you.
So at this time, are you going to tell us a little bit about what we have here?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely. So we had to offer the cheese and charcuterie board.
Okay.
And then we also presented some of our paninis and our salads, as well as one of our premium hors d'oeuvres, which is the smoked salmon BLT. We've talked about the hot honey a little bit. We always try to,
hot honey.
Yeah, it's one of our local favorites.
Delicious.
We always try to incorporate different local ingredients in our food, and just hope to spice it up a little bit so y'all can enjoy.
Awesome. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you.
So again, we appreciate you having us and hosting us here. And right now we're going to take a brief break, and we'll be right back with Breaking Bread with the Chief.
Be the change you want to see. Join the Memphis Police Department. Salary starting at $54,611, increasing to $60,713 after probation. Benefits include a $15,000 sign-on bonus, up to $10,000 in relocation assistance. Other incentives include pension, health, vision, dental, and life insurance, 25-year retirement, take-home cars, over 75 specialized units. For more information or details, visit joinmpd.com.
Welcome back to Breaking Bread with the Chief, and today we have some really exciting guests, and I'm just privileged to have an opportunity to sit down and have conversation with them. We've got a subject on recidivism and reentry, something that we've all been talking about. We've been really trying to, wrap our arms around our youth and figure out how do we forge a better path for them. And I think these conversations can hopefully resonate with other individuals and how to get more involved. Mm-hmm. So what I want to do is, and we've been talking a lot just here at the table around this great food, and we're going to keep eating too, by the way. So what I want to talk about right now, I want to start with you, Melvin, because this is real conversation. This is, the different experiences that we've all had in life, and yours has been one that has really transformed your life and how how you are pouring into the community in a very positive and different way. So you were incarcerated once before, and just tell us a little bit about, what that was about and how you came to start your program helping young people.
Yes, I was incarcerated in Dayton, Ohio, about 700 miles away from friends and family members. And that was rough for me. The first 57 days, I was on 23-1 lockdown. So that played on my mind a lot. But it was just a series of events throughout prison that I could feel that I was out of place, that wasn't where I would belong. But it was inmate raping that I kind of witnessed on the way to my cell, and there was, in that cell, I just dropped down to my knees to God, and I was like, listen, that cannot happen to me.
Yeah.
And I told God right there, I said, if you protect me in here, when I get out, I'll commit the rest of my life to saving young men like myself, so they won't have to experience some of the things that I've experienced. And so it was just kind of a pact from God, and he kept his end of the bargain after 2.5 years, and then I just continue to keep mine.
Right. And I mean, you sent chills up my spine right there when you said I think we've all had those moments when we drop down on our knees to God, because there have been times when there was no one else. There was no one else. The people that we depend on, even people in our family, can't tackle problems sometimes that are greater than life itself. And for you to, turn your life in that direction and to see it manifest into something as wonderful and as powerful as what's happening right now. Tell us a little bit about Pure Youth.
So PURE stands for Progressing Under Restraints and Extremes. And it was just my belief that that's exactly what the kids here in Memphis go through each and every day. I mean, obviously, it's no secret with kids living in double the national average of poverty, double the national average of food, hardship. And it literally started off as just wanting to provide a little league experience for kids, something that I never had. And then from taking kids home and realizing that there was no adult supervision, there was no food, there was no electricity. So one kid turned into 3 kids, and then I looked up, 9 kids was living in my front living room with me and my daughter sharing the back bedroom.
Wow.
And we thought we had a deal with a local private school where the boys would be able to go and kind of further their education and put them in a better environment. Well, all the boys scored a 0 percentile on reading, writing, and math. So of course the school didn't accept them. I just came up with the theory of we remove them from the school system, because there was nothing wrong with the school system. It just wasn't conducive. It wasn't a conducive environment.
Right.
So we removed them from the school system, hired a small staff and volunteers, and just kind of went to work on their education and took care of all the other things that was affecting the education, from clothes, food, a comfortable night sleeping with nobody touching them and bothering them and different things like that. And the first year we got a 3.7 grade level jump. The second year was a 3.1 grade level jump, and then we had kids to start to hit the college benchmarks on the ACT. And it kind of took off from there.
Sounds like you need to do some consulting with our school system. Sound like some great success. When you talked about bringing 9 kids we all think in terms of 9 kids in the living room, how uncomfortable is that? But that was probably the safest place they had experienced.
Absolutely.
And was absolutely nothing wrong with sharing that space, knowing that they had that safety, a roof over them, and somebody that was caring for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's the biggest thing as a child, that a lot of people forget what poverty does to you to shape your mind, your beliefs, and your morals. So just giving those kids a safe haven for some of the things that we don't think about at night with somebody not touching us or making sure we got a healthy meal. Because some of our kids, their last meal is at school at 11:15. So we saw tremendous skyrocketing in our kids just by taking care of their basic needs.
Absolutely. that in itself is rewarding. That's God answering that prayer. That was God answering that prayer, and you delivering. God, if you do this for me, I will do. And we've all had those moments. But William, you have a different story. You were wrongfully accused. You were incarcerated and wrongfully accused. And we all know that happens in this country. And tell me a little bit about that, your experience, and how you ended up where you are right now.
Okay. So in 2013, as you said, I was wrongfully convicted, sentenced to 25 years at 100%. So that meant I was 41 years old at the time, and I wasn't supposed to get out until I was 66 years old. But, again, it goes back to much like Brother Melvin said here. I mean, faith, family, and friends, having a strong support system. The challenge with prison is that the punishment is being away from your family. Yeah. That's the true punishment, being away from society, missing weddings, funerals, graduations, etc. And so with that, it was dealing with that. That was the true challenge. But after 6 years, 9 months, my case was overturned, the sentence was vacated, charges dismissed. So I came home, but I didn't have the collateral consequences that a lot of people have in terms of I could get a passport, I had a driver's license, I could vote. Right. But the challenge is those internal things. It's the fact that you were still in that environment and what it does to you mentally, what it does to you emotionally, and then just that loss, the second loss, which is that loss of time, coming back into a world as a different person. Technology has changed and the way people interact has changed. So it's how do you find your place in the world?
Absolutely. In the strength of character, to be able to deal with that. You really can't explain. It's just like when people lose a loved one and somebody says, I know how you feel. We really don't know. And we really don't know what your personal experiences are and what you had to overcome, the strength to motivate yourself to sort of overcome. But you found justice.
Indeed.
And you found justice in a timely, may not have been timely to you because just losing 3 days is a lot. And to have to remember what you went through even during that short time that you experienced. So tell me about your role now, being that person who sees individuals that have been incarcerated and come back, and what can we do better as it relates to the reentry piece, from a community standpoint on how we help people reenter?
Sure. Wow. So, I serve as the director of the Office of Reentry at the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development. So we are the first Office of Reentry that's not connected to a carceral environment, a Department of Corrections or a sheriff's office. So we view reentry, successful reentry, and lower recidivism through a labor-focused lens. In other words, if a person can get a job or learn how to be an entrepreneur, something that allows them to get a livable wage, they won't recidivate because it's going to refocus time, effort, energy, and they can reunite with their families. So with that, we have a statewide network of American Job Centers that we utilize, and I work on strategies, programs, and trainings to help persons who are justice involved, whether they've been arrested, charged, convicted, or actually been on the inside, get back into the workforce.
Absolutely. So are those programs voluntary programs? Or are they mandatory?
They're totally voluntary.
They're totally voluntary. So I would think that there probably a segment of the incarcerated population that don't take advantage of those services, and they find themselves in very, very difficult places when they do come out. Yeah. So, and I'm gonna make I want to talk a little bit later on. We'll talk a little bit later on about your trajectory. That road to be in a very, very important position. But Joy. So Joy, tell us about your work with Playback Memphis.
Yes.
And as a police officer, tell me what led into your work there.
Well, I've been a police officer now for 20 years. And when I was in patrol, I did a lot of community work. I've always been what I felt was a community officer. And at the time, my colonel told me about a community meeting that he needed me to attend. And, oh, Joy, you have the bubbly personality, you're social, so just go over here to this meeting. And that wasn't anything abnormal. So I went to this meeting, and it was being hosted by Mid-South Peace and Justice. And the goal was to, there was a project that would bring police officers together with community members in a circle, and we would have conversations, real conversations, and discuss how we could make change in our community and build a bridge between police and community members. Well, I met a young lady there named Virginia, who is the director of Playback. She was one of the invited community members. For 18 months, we met in this circle. This was 2012. For 18 months, we met in this circle, had some great things come out. We built great relationships, and then trust was broken, okay? So we had to part our ways. Memphis Police Department leadership decided, okay, we're gonna remove ourselves. But Virginia and I, who was the director of Playback, decided, no, we have to keep this going. So we met for lunch, we became friends, and we would discuss all these ideas. And at the time, we took it to our deputy director, and we created this program where we wanna bring officers in with those former offenders who had served time in jail and actually build relationships. And we couldn't do it as large as the initial circle, but we started. And here we are 12 years later, we have formed Performing the Peace. It's the name of the program, where we had officers that had some police relation issues with the community, that's what we call it, maybe not as much empathy. And we invited them there, set them down with people who had big charges, who served years in prison, and actually got to know that person for who he or she was. And eventually we were like, okay, this is great. We're getting officers, we're turning their lives around. So now, what next? How about if we got the officers at their birthplace, which is the police academy? Before they even get out and take on the police culture or get that, hey, this is what we do, this is not what we do. Let's start there. And so now we offer training to police recruits, and we've been doing that for probably about 6 years. And that training is called Culture Humility. We come in and talk about real things with
Absolutely. I've heard a lot of really positive things. I need to come out to one of those classes. They let me know when their schedule. But we are really trying to pour into officers before they end up out on the street. What it is that the community expects. Because it's just like when you go to Walmart, the customer is who we're supposed to be concerned about. Our community is our customer. Our community pays our salaries. Our community expects a certain, level of respect, the certain type of interaction amongst, the officers that are sworn to serve. So, to take a part in reentry, that's an awkward place to be. I'm the person that put the handcuffs on. So now you want to be my friend. But those are the bridges that have to be built in order for us to move forward. And we need to take these uniforms off at times so people can see us for who we are. We have children. We have children that have been justice involved. We have kids that do things just like our next door neighbor's kids do. And we can't forget that. So when we're encountering young people, we really need to think about how do we save that person as opposed to just being so focused on what rule says this. Officers have a lot of discretion. When I was growing up, my brothers got in trouble on a regular basis in Atlanta. I remember one day they went up the street and they got in a neighbor's pool. Because back then, black people didn't have pools in the backyard. They went and got in a neighbor's pool. Technically, they burglarized that home. Them and their friends jumped over the fence, and all they wanted to do was have fun. But when the police came and picked them up, they picked all 6 of them up. They put them in the back seat of the cars, and they took them home. They could have been charged with trespass. They could have been charged with burglary. They put them in the cars. These are 15-year-olds, and they took them home. If it weren't for that, my brother wouldn't have been a colonel in the military. My other brother probably wouldn't have been an RN living in California, having success. So I said that to say, as we encounter people, we don't know their stories, and all it takes is just one decision to change the trajectory of someone's life. And you all can chime in at any point in time and continue to eat too, you know. Your perspective about, from a law enforcement standpoint too, from a policing standpoint, what is it that you would like to see out of the Memphis Police Department?
I know.
Be candid.
I know for me, it's a respect factor. Because just like you said, they do have that discretion, but at the same time, their words can escalate or de-escalate a situation as well. And I don't think sometimes they understand that. That's always been my experience from being an entrepreneur and having some pretty cool people throughout the city. It's like, hey, bro, chill. I pay you a salary. Like, chill out for a second. Like, let's talk as men, because, like, in my mind, well, if you put down your badge, then you're just a man. So let's keep that same energy. Like, as if you would put that badge down, you would talk totally different to me. Me and you both know that.
Right.
So let's talk that same way.
That's right.
Because I'm gonna respect you the same way with and without it. And that's just always been.
And I guess I can really identify with that, Melvin, because the bravado isn't in female officers. We don't roll like that.
Right.
I'm just saying, it's the culture. We don't feel like we have to have that strength. We're just dealing with the job. Okay, I got a citation. Maybe it's, you were speeding or whatever. Thank you, sir. Have a good day. But sometimes that bravado in this work, and that's something that we're working on as far as culture is concerned. Some departments are worse than others when it comes to that. Some people take on this job just so that they can wear this uniform and be
something that they wasn't in high school.
Something that they wasn't in high school. That's a reality. Yeah. And then you have some officers that no matter what, when people are cussing at them and everything, they're gonna say, yes, sir, thank you, sir, and so on and so on. But you're absolutely right. There's a course that I helped to not just develop, but implement in an organization that I'm a member of called NOBLE, the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. And that organization, our whole mission is justice by action, because we believe that as law enforcement leaders and as executives, we can help change the trajectory of what the traditional law enforcement image was like, throughout the years, a heavy hand on communities. But the course itself really is for young people and police officers to be in a classroom setting. We go through these practical exercises where we're stopping a vehicle and the officer has an opportunity to do it the right way and the wrong way. And we critique what went wrong here. It was the way you talked to that driver. It was the way you responded to what they had to say. And then we put the young person in the officer's shoes. And the young person stops the car, and inside the car are people acting crazy and doing all these things. So it's an opportunity to see both perspectives of what's going on. But the key is that we want officers to see that their behavior and how they treat the public can dictate whether a situation goes up or go down. And we're training to de-escalate, but a lot of times words are powerful, and words can escalate situations.
Quickly.
Yeah, very quickly. Yes. But we thank each of you for the work that you're doing. We're gonna come right back. We're gonna take a quick break, and we're gonna talk a little bit more about recidivism, re-entry, and how we can work better in the community to have a better transition for young people, and not to see so many of our young people involved in the criminal justice system in the first place. Thank you.
Be the change you want to see. Join the Memphis Police Department. Salary starting at $54,611, increasing to $60,713 after probation. Benefits include a $15,000 sign-on bonus, up to $10,000 in relocation assistance. Other incentives include pension, health, vision, dental, and life insurance, 25-year retirement, take-home cars, over 75 specialized units. For more information or details, visit joinmpd.com.
Okay, welcome back to Breaking Bread with the Chief. And as you all have witnessed, we have a really robust conversation going on about recidivism and reentry in our city. And we have some individuals here that are really involved and really trying to help the situation to support individuals that are coming back, and also trying to prevent our young people from even being involved in the criminal justice system in the first place. So William, I know we were talking about your work and reentry. What do you think are some of the biggest challenges for people that are coming back into the community?
Yeah, so many. I mean, first you have to understand that every person's reentry is different because everybody's dealing with their own circumstances. But just some common things: lack of resources, homelessness, high rates of mental illness, substance abuse. Just health issues. I mean, you're talking about folks that come home that have untreated chronic diseases, high HIV, high instances of HCV.
Right.
So when you put all these things in place, it makes for a hard time for a person to transition because you're still dealing with other things.
Right.
So the challenge is, how do you create an ecosystem that's going to allow folks who are re-entering society to survive?
Right.
And that's the biggest thing, because no one thinks about, hey, I deal with homeless people, but a lot of people who re-enter society are homeless. So how do you reimagine the resources that you have available to help this population?
Absolutely. And then, you know, I know we don't think about it too often, that everybody isn't in their best health. You know, when they come back into the community, and if they have medical needs, you know, who's helping them to make sure that they stay on track with taking care of their own personal health. We talk about wraparound services and, you know, the support that, you know, our community members need when they come back, you know, into the community, and not being invested enough in that part too. So do the programs go on for a period of time where that person can really sustain themselves, or do you send them out there, give them some help, and then eventually you got to let them go?
Yeah. So with our system, through our American Job Centers, we have a case management system.
Okay.
By federal law, we have a 90-day case management system, but a person can continue to receive our services. And from having been incarcerated, 90 days is not enough time to transition successfully into society. So, but a lot of times it depends on that person.
Okay.
Is him or her, them or they, Zer or Z, really ready to transition back into society? Are they really ready to do the work?
Right.
And it's hard work.
Yeah.
Because you're dealing with, again, as I said, so many different things, but a whole new world.
Yeah.
Prison has a lot of antisocial behavior that you can easily become adjusted to. And then coming back into society, trying to readjust to social behavior to society can be hard.
Yeah, I'm sure, especially as a person is looking for employment, you know, because we expect people to act and talk and be a certain way.
Sure.
So what do you two, you know, from your perspectives about reentry and the fact that we have people that we want to bring back into our community and help them to be as successful as possible, what do you think the needs are? You know, not just from a law enforcement standpoint, because people don't really talk about law enforcement and what is our role in reentry and trying to make sure that individuals don't come back into the criminal justice system.
Well, I think the most important thing that William said was resources. Yeah. And I think it starts from childhood. In our program, when I worked with Playback and we build these relationships, there's a young man whose name is also Will. And he tells his story about growing up with a mother that had full-blown AIDS and got so sick where she couldn't get out of bed. So he was being the oldest sibling with two younger sisters. He would go out and go to the local gas station and mom and pop stores and steal just so they could eat.
Wow.
And in his story, he shares that, you know, stealing for them to eat, it became so easy that it started to grow and to manifest into this thing where he would steal everywhere he go, and he became, you know, a professional at it. And in that, when you go out into the world. You found one way to survive, and you come out here and there's no help.
Right.
You know, what is one to do? And so you out here and say, well, I know, you know, if you're hungry. You
gotta survive.
And I've never been hungry.
Yeah.
So we don't know what that feels like where you're starving and you'll do anything to eat.
Yeah.
And I just think our society is not built to really, you know, put people back out here. You know, you have to have a support system. You gotta have some money hid somewhere. There has to be something. You can't just pop back out and, you know, welcome to Chick-fil-A.
Right.
It doesn't work that way.
Well, and we had to help people with how do they self-sustain?
Yes.
How do we get them to a point where they can take care of themselves? And sometimes we can be an unforgiving society when individuals have had a bump in the road. You know, we scrutinize, you know, too much. We have a program in the city now where we're allowing individuals in the city who have been justice involved to be gainfully employed, you know, and even individuals with felonies, you know, to be gainfully employed, because I think the city realizes too that we can't continue to turn our backs on a whole population of people that are living in our community and living in a community in a very desperate way, where they may be homeless, they may want to work, but they're having all these doors, you know, closed. So now we're saying, hey, we've got jobs, and if you want to work, we have an application process. So I know we're talking about reentry. This is an opportunity for me to plug the city too, and not necessarily in the police department. We have job offerings all over the city, and I think it's a great thing to give people another opportunity, because some of our employees now are saying if it wasn't for the city of Memphis giving them a chance, they wouldn't have a house. You know, they're able to buy a home and do all the things that, you know, normal people who live a normal life without having been justice involved are able to do. So, Melvin, your program, tell me a little bit about prevention. And what do you see as some of the preventive measures that the city can probably support in?
It's simple. Removing the kids from their environment that want to be removed.
Absolutely. Okay.
I mean, your environment is everything. And like I said earlier, our kids are living in double the national average of poverty. We got 37% that's living 200% below poverty. Well, that's gonna shape all our kids' morals, beliefs, and values right there.
Right.
So in terms, and this has been my my issue the entire time was, well, we have a place for a kid to go if he commit a crime. But we don't have a place for a kid to go outside of Pier if he wants to escape poverty. Because a kid he don't pick or choose if he grow up in poverty.
He just stuck there.
So what happens if this kid says, I want to be removed from poverty?
Right. Oh, that's powerful.
And that was the biggest thing with Peer is the relocation.
Right.
Yeah.
If you want to be removed from your environment, come on. Because here's the belief that a lot of people don't understand is all your high-level drug dealers, all the guys that actually organized the crime, those are the guys that wanted to get out and had no other option but to use what was around them to be successful.
We are products of our environment.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, it's simple. You look at the state of Tennessee. We got 2 boarding schools in East Tennessee, but none in West Tennessee. Until Pier comes along, and it's simple. You gotta remove these kids from
their
poverty.
environment. So do you have a location where kids are housed?
Yes, so we house right now up to 24 kids.
Nice.
We're getting ready to build another dormitory where we'll be able to house 32. And then we're having some talks about some different areas in town. Because at the end of the day, that's what our kids need. I mean, you gotta be able to remove them from their environment and give them a positive, nurturing environment with role models, mentors, things to kind of see and believe. Because kids are talking to kids these days, and they have very little adult interaction. So now, well, there's no bad idea to an 11-year-old, to a 12-year-old. Come on, let's go do it.
Right.
And that was always been my biggest thing is, when are we gonna pour tons of money into
our
the
children.
prevention?
So do you survive on grant money? Do you?
Yes, so we do
Okay.
grant money, individuals,
Okay.
corporations, the city of Memphis.
The city does support
Yeah, so the city of Memphis supported us for about the last 5 years.
Outstanding.
Going back to when Kip Conrad was the chairman of the board.
Do you
and
have
before
aspirations of
senior-
growing?
Yes, so that's the, but you need, once again, you need funding.
You need funding
I'm
for that.
actually preparing, the city just opened up their application, and we're actually going to ask for another $1.5 million to build. I mean, because at the end of the day, we're going to keep doing it, we're going to keep doing it, but if you don't remove the kids that want to be removed, you're going to get the same.
That's huge. That's really, really huge, because, you know, the work that we do every day is so repetitive. It's so repetitive. We run into the same young people over and over again. And when we run into these young people, it's not that kids are born to be criminals. Kids are products of their environment, just like you said. And it's like kids will be what they see. Survival, exactly. So those kind of programs, I mean, I can't say enough, I know, is really needed.
Yes.
Do you run into conflict with parents or guardians who try to intercept the care of the young person?
No, because the parent doesn't have to release guardianship or anything like that. So we have 3 types of students. We have one that comes every day.
Okay.
And then we have the ones that stay during the week.
Okay.
And then we have the ones that stay 24/7.
Okay.
So we have different options. But to go back to your question, they don't intervene because it's voluntary.
Okay, so they want this type of...
The biggest misconception of people in poverty is that they lack desire. No, they lack pathway and opportunity.
I got you.
So how do you provide a kid with opportunity?
Right.
You remove him from his environment.
Can I come visit your spot?
Absolutely.
I would love to come visit your spot. We all need to go over there.
field trip.
Take some charcuterie boards with us.
That's been my biggest thing. But to go back to your first question, with how do we help get people back into society, is number one, it has to be intentional. And I can't give him the option. No, listen, you're gonna get out and these are the things you're gonna do, or we're gonna put you back in.
Right.
Like you can't, because realistically, you're saying, well, we gave him this program and this program and this program, but his mind was not able to process to take advantage of that program. So in terms, if you're gonna be intentional about it, like a kid, well, you make them do it. Like you got a kid, you gotta tell them, hey, brush your teeth.
Right.
And then over time, that kids begin to brush their
Their teeth on their own.
Well, you got to think about it in terms, and this was one of my biggest things is prison and being incarcerated. It makes you lazy.
Yeah.
Because we're doing very little work. We're hanging around playing dominoes, making up all these lies of who they were in the streets, and none of it's true.
Right.
So in terms, when you get out, well, you've been laying up the last 10 years in terms of, so my thing was, number one, we need to make all them guys in prison work. Nobody needs to be sucking up air conditioning.
Yes.
But it should be mandatory when you, a year from your release date, let's start doing these classes. It's gotta be mandatory. Because when you leaving it up for options, not going to class.
Well, I think that's a wonderful idea. But if we talk about reality of that, right?
Yeah, you got to make them do
If you have a probationary officer or a parole officer, me speaking as an officer, how do I monitor my 50 guys to ensure they're going to therapy, they're going to class, they're going. I mean, there's still shortages everywhere, and we may take these positions and want what's best, and we want to make sure that this person is receiving everything they need to assist them in reentry. But the reality is, I can't man 50 or 60 individuals.
That's true.
But I really do.
It's got to be intentional.
What you said, because we have gotten to be a society that we just allow people to
Do what they want.
Do what they want to do.
And that's not
in
reality.
everything.
Yes.
Our children in school get to do what they want to do. We used to have to sit there, be quiet, say your prayers, and do the Pledge of Allegiance. Or you were going to be in a corner someplace.
Yep.
But now we've gotten so soft on what structure looks like.
Yep.
But those kinds of routines helped us to be responsible adults, that you can't do whatever you want to in this world.
You just can't do
You know, when you allow that to happen, young people live in a way where they feel like they can do whatever they want.
Yes.
So to translate that, because when you were talking about the reentry program, do you think there'll ever be, a program where it's more mandatory that when you leave, you will have some of the skills that you need, as opposed to release, and then I hope you go to the class, Yes.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny you say that, because in Tennessee, when you're in prison, you have to have a job or you have to go to school. You have
Okay.
to. So,
That's good.
One of the first things you got to remember is that everybody that's in prison is not in there for life.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
So
Right.
95% of these folks coming
out.
So
Yeah.
the big question is who we want them to be when they come home.
Right.
What is going on the other side of that wall?
Right.
That's making certain that Jim, James, John, whoever is going to come back better than they were.
That's right.
Who are they going to be?
Right.
So with that, there are a number of different programs, but much like Melvin said, are you taking advantage of this program?
Absolutely.
And are you able to even process what this program is going to do to benefit you when you get back into society? So it's having those types of conversations, having folks who can sit down and talk through, this is how you use this vocation. This is what you can do with this.
Right.
Because I met some of the most talented people ever in prison.
Oh, I'm
People
sure.
who can do more with less.
Oh,
You
yeah.
can imagine.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And just imagine those are transferable
That's
work
right.
skills. You
That's
can
right.
take that and you can do something. If you can run a drug ring, you understand supply,
Absolutely.
demand.
You can steal a car.
You see what I mean? You understand mechanics and
That's right.
engineering.
Absolutely.
Damn right.
Absolutely.
That's my book.
So with all that, yeah.
Right. This false narrative about our young people, unfortunately, there's this stereotype that our black kids struggle with academics and
No, they
learning.
don't.
And they do not. It's opportunity and access. And when our young people don't get the same opportunities and access, then we get a product where that energy and that creativity is channeled in a negative way for purposes of survival, as opposed to giving them the opportunities and access to channel those skills in a very positive way that and someday will sustain them in life. It's just a fact in minority communities that access is not as available in other communities.
And I'm just talking about, not to interrupt, in the city, our kids just need the bare necessities.
That's it.
Like if we could, if we could just give them the
Basics.
a roof, 3 meals,
Peanut butter and
snacks,
jelly.
and he or she is not
That's
touching me
it.
at night.
That's it. And see, you brought up something that, is a fact, that a lot of our kids are experiencing other kinds of nefarious things in their lives. What's happening after hours and closed doors. They're being, abused, whether it's physical abuse or sexual abuse, and those kinds of experiences also have an impact on who they become and the troubles, and I see
Kids
that.
are dying.
Yes.
When the kids, so you have so back to what you're saying, who's tied to the death.
Yes.
So let's think about it in terms of when a 13, 14-year-old is murdered. Well, who are his friends?
Right. Right.
13, 14-year-old. Now they're going through this trauma and nobody is addressing it.
Right. That's right.
Now think about it, if we lose our friend, we're gonna be ready
how
to
it
cry.
feels
You're
and
gonna
how
call
you're
your
happy.
homeboy.
Right.
You may get a therapist. All
Right.
So what about Johnny?
Exactly.
What about Kim?
Exactly.
And and they wonder why Johnny and Kim does something crazy at 21.
Right.
What do you mean?
That's
It's
right.
been brewing for
That's right.
20,
For 20 years.
20 years.
Yes.
You got to
And
look
it
at
was
he
never-
started off
right,
wrong.
Right. And when our young people don't have professional means of unpacking trauma and have professionals in their lives to help them deal with those, it does compound over years. It compounds. I have a personal relative who experienced a very traumatic situation at 15. Very smart young man was assaulted on the way to school in the woods by a male and stabbed in the chest, was left to die. Someone found him there, got him to the hospital, but that incident changed his life completely. Being accosted and sexually assaulted as a young boy, he has never been the same ever again. And when we think in terms, and back then, that's been a long time ago, back then, adults, you know, it was sort of taboo. You don't go get counseling. You know, he gonna be all right. You know, he's a boy, man up. You know, man up, you're gonna be all right. We never really just bought into, as a culture, bought into counseling and all the things that we know for a fact are necessary for our young people to get through, you know, traumatic kinds of situations.
They be heartbroken. So we had a kid in our program, and literally within 7 months, he had 4 people close to him die. And you're sitting there thinking like, adult couldn't handle that.
Right. No.
You know what I mean? Man, I've seen it. I've seen adults check out.
Because they couldn't handle that.
You know what I mean?
We see it on a regular basis.
So then when you start to think about it, it's like, so ain't nobody realizing this?
Right. And he got to deal with that by himself.
So in turn, how does he deal with it? Let's go get his click back.
Yeah.
That's his coping mechanism. That's what he's been taught to cope with. And then we'll all look at the news and go, why are they acting like that? And then I tell people all the time, well, how would you act if you were hungry?
Exactly.
Then they get mad and I'm like, all right, I'll go home.
Oh yeah.
But you know what? That's our reality. We know that there's so many different types of trauma that our young people experience, whether it's just poverty and not having something to eat. There was a young man at a meeting that I was attending with the school system where they were sitting down talking about truancy. And so this young man was 19 years old. He has 3 siblings. He watched his mother get killed by her boyfriend, and he never knew who his father was. But his whole objective was to keep his 3 siblings together. So they're living in one of these weekly on Summer Avenue, in one of these weekly pay-as-you-go rooms, and waiting to see if he's gonna get another check from the help, you know, and he's on a bus going to take the kids to make sure that they go to school. So he's on the bus getting them to school, and he's going back so he can go to work. He got 2 jobs. He's not getting any sleep. He's 19 years old.
Wow.
And this is somebody who could be stealing cars. This is somebody who could be doing all kinds of other things. Instead, he decided that he was going to take, but when you see situations like that and people who have the desire to do right, the desire, why can't we just go help that person? You know, go help that person. So this has been a very, very, you know, robust conversation. So I'm gonna ask another question. If you were chief for the day, it's a loaded question. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna keep y'all on subject. If you were chief for the day and you think in terms of recidivism, reoffenders, and, you know, even re-entry, what do you think that the chief should be doing or focus on if you had that responsibility, that authority, that power?
Mine is simple. I will make them do it as many, and just like she said, you can't make a gajillion people do it. But you can be intentional, like guerrilla warfare, and take a small group and then impact that group and go and push them out. I think it just I think people just need to be made to do stuff.
Do
And,
things.
and secretly, people desire to be told what to do.
They do. They want structure.
Yeah.
They absolutely do.
So if it was me, if I had your part, I'd be making people do stuff. Like it wouldn't be an option for do it. And then like all those guys is sitting up in the pentaform and all that.
Yeah.
My highways will be clean, my neighborhoods will be clean, and you can utilize that extra overtime money for something else.
For something else. So,
but I'll make people do stuff.
And you know, I was brought up in an environment, like I said, when you didn't work, you didn't eat. You know, who lives without earning their keep? You know, at all. And if you're able-bodied, it doesn't matter if you're incarcerated or not. You should be able to contribute toward whatever benefit you need in life. If it's you need to eat today, then I need to work so that I can earn my keep, you know. So unfortunately, I'm not in a position as the chief to control the penal systems or corrections, but I have always agreed, and some people don't agree with me when I say this. I remember back in the day when I was young, if you were justice involved, you were mandated by a judge to go in the military and have a career. There are a lot of older veterans right now who had a whole career because they did something and the judge said, you're gonna have to go in the Air Force. You're gonna have to go in, which one you wanna go in, Air Force, Marines? And that was the best thing that could have happened to them. They got benefits, they got skill sets, we have gotten to be a society now where we let people make choices. I don't feel like, it's no different than when you try to give somebody a sandwich when they say they're hungry, they say, I don't eat bologna.
You ain't hungry.
Then you ain't hungry. That's right. That's right. That's right. But to your point, you're right. We should be more in control because if you look at other countries, other countries don't have the problems that we have.
Because I always wonder, you got to think in terms of, if I'm living out here in poverty and you're giving me 3 meals and air conditioning.
I'm enabling. That's it.
Why would I?
That's
like,
right.
where's the
That's
incentive
right.
to go back out there and fight with the wolves?
That's right. Yeah. What you tolerate, you encourage. And if you tolerate people to just do nothing, you're encouraging it. Yeah. So, Chief of the day, you get my job, Joy.
Chief of the day, I would not want your job. The pressure, I can only imagine. But if we're gonna say, if I was chief of the day in dealing with re-entry, I have to come from a police officer's perspective. I do understand that there's not much control as a chief in that position on a local government level. However, I would make sure that my officers are receiving the training and the resources to understand the people that they are serving. You're not just serving the soccer moms and the middle class. You are also serving those who are trying to re-enter into our city.
That's right.
You know, in low-income areas, you have to be well-trained in empathy.
Yes.
Not just de-escalation, but just understanding who people are as humans.
And where their point of reference, where they come from.
Yeah, I would like to see training where officers are taught by civilians. You know, these guys will make great. I come from 5 years as a training instructor. I still teach at the academy in my role, but I'm not assigned there. I could see if you all would just come in and just talk. Sometimes we have to hear what's real.
Yeah. Well, you're absolutely right. And to that point, you know, my point of where I came from, that was part of the culture. We did that on a regular basis. We had people coming in from the community. We had activists to come in because we wanted our officers not just to understand policy and procedure.
Yes.
I have a saying, culture will eat policy for lunch. Okay?
Yes, it will.
You can have all the good policies in the world, but if you have a culture where people don't understand the history of Memphis.
Yes.
What is the history? What are the histories of Binghamton, Smoky City?
Yes.
What are the history of all of the high schools? Why do people say, what high school did you go to? As opposed to what college did you go to?
Correct.
Because that's important to this community and culture and where you came from. So our officers need to know those things. So in my previous work, we had a history class for those recruits about the communities that they were actually going to be serving. We had people to come in to talk about those adversarial kind of things that happened in that community back in the day, and why certain community members still felt a certain kind of way about police. If you don't know that, then you don't know how to act and interact with people.
Correct.
You need to be able to respect, Melvin, I know where you came from. I know what happened over here.
Yes.
I know everything about this community, and I'm here to be a partner to make it better. Now we're taking all of our recruits to the Civil Rights Museum. A lot of people come in here and they don't know anything about, you know, Martin Luther King, what happened here, the real history, the real one.
Oh, I know.
You know, about what occurred here. And so we're taking them through the history, because if you come from New York and you come to Memphis, and you think you're gonna police in Memphis, and you don't know about the history and what police meant back in the day, then that's a problem. So you're absolutely right. We haven't gotten exactly where we wanna be with it, but we're gonna start bringing people in so that our recruits can hear from people about being on this side and dealing with you. I respect you, but you gotta respect me too as a man.
Absolutely.
As a man. That's it. Chief for a day. Woo.
Chief for a day.
Chief for a day.
I would control what I can control.
Yeah.
That means who do I have access to in a day? Let's have a number of encouraging conversations with folks who are at 201, with young people who are incarcerated, and just tell them you can do it.
That's right.
You here right now, but this ain't the end.
right.
There's more.
That's right.
So let them know that there's a comma, there are 3 dots, there's more.
That's
so
right.
have those comments. For them to hear that, I think from a chief, from someone in your position, would mean more than anyone else, because you're saying, yeah, I'm a leader. Yeah, I'm the face of the police force, but I'm also telling you that you can.
That's right.
And I know you can. So just having that encouraging conversation.
Absolutely. Well, William, I will take on any invitation that you have for me to talk to young people. Everybody knows that young people are my weak spot.
Okay.
You know, whatever we can do to touch. And I tell officers that on a regular basis. When you see young people, don't walk past them. Touch them, talk to them, humanize your work so that it's not just good for them, it's good for you. Because when they open their eyes and they say thank you, or can I touch your badge, that does something for you as a person. So I'll be glad to come in and talk to your young people. You know, at any point in time, I want to talk more about your work and how we can help influence what Memphis needs in order to take our community further. This has been a rich and rewarding conversation, and I know we have deliverables now. When we leave out of here, I want to get more involved and see how the department can help support your work as well, Joy. And I applaud you for volunteering your time and really being candid. It's hard being a police officer, but we're people, and we need to stay connected with our community and other people in our community. Are y'all gonna come back and have lunch with me again, break bread with me again? Absolutely. And we'll do it at your place next time. So this is Breaking Bread with the Chief, the best in blue Memphis Police Department, taking every opportunity to touch those individuals that are in the vineyard, those individuals that are doing the work, that have the heart to do the work to make the change. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again in Breaking Bread with the Chief.
Be the change you want to see. Join the Memphis Police Department. Salary starting at $54,611, increasing to $60,713 after probation. Benefits include a $15,000 sign-on bonus, up to $10,000 in relocation assistance. Other incentives include pension, health, vision, dental, and life insurance, 25-year retirement, take-home cars, over 75 specialized units. For more information or details, visit joinmpd.com.